guys, we've got a fun review today because we're talking about Elvis. When it comes to Elvis Presley, I don't really feel like he needs an introduction. He's a rock and roll icon. And with the string of musical biopics that we've had in recent years, especially after Bohemian Rhapsody was such a massive success, it was only a matter of time before we got one for Elvis Presley. But I was intrigued a little bit more by this due to the fact that it is from director Baz Luhrmann. The approach taken here and the way that we frame this biopic is an interesting one because we do still see the rise of Elvis Presley from his childhood all the way up through his superstar rise as a rock and roll superstar. But it is told in a way through Colonel Tom Parker, his longtime manager that's portrayed by Tom Hanks. Mileage on this biopic will certainly vary, but I think one of the biggest factors here is if you're a big fan of the Baz Luhrmann style. I mean, he has quite an interesting style and it's not for everyone. Moulin Rouge, The Great Gatsby, they all have this distinct over-the-top energetic style, and that again is on display here in Elvis. Could be a lot to take in if you're not familiar with the Baz Luhrmann-isms. Baz Luhrmann's style does work quite well here in Elvis. All of the extravagant musical performances that we witnessed throughout Elvis's career, those are by far the best scenes of the film. The music in general, it's great, whether it's the modern music or just the recreations of all these different Elvis performances. It really hammers home the passion that Elvis had in all these performances. It's pretty great. Even as someone who's not like a massive fan of Elvis, those scenes are very exciting. Speaking of Elvis, it has been kind of a fun ride to see the trajectory of Austin Butler's career, because I remember when he was on the Disney Channel many years ago now, and this is like a career-defining superstar breakout performance here as Elvis. He's absolutely fantastic. You can completely tell he gave it his all here to channel Elvis, the look, the mannerisms, the voice, whether he's just speaking or singing, because he sings a lot of material in the film as well. He brings a lot of nuance to the portrayal, and it really captivates you whenever he is on screen. It's an award-worthy performance here. I don't know about Oscars yet, it is still early to say, but I definitely feel like it's a lock for at least the award consideration. Same goes for a lot of the other categories, like the music, of course, and all of the extravagant costumes. All of the costumes in this are so good. Time and effort put into recreating all these different outfits that Elvis wore throughout his life. It's pretty extravagant, which I expect from Baz Luhrmann. When it comes to Tom Hanks, I do think he did a great job with the character, despite the fat suit and the questionable accent at times. Tom Hanks is always going to give it his all, and it is kind of tough here seeing him being this master manipulator manager of Elvis. I mean, he's a con man, so you're not supposed to like him, but it's Tom Hanks under there, so it's kind of a conflict of interest. Unfortunately, both Austin Butler and Tom Hanks are kind of the only characters that get any sort of depth. A lot of the other side characters along this biopic don't really get anything, which is kind of a disappointment here. I also don't really understand the framing here. After watching the film, I don't understand why we had to tell this biopic through the lens of Colonel Tom Parker. It would be one thing if we got to see a bit more here with that framing, but I don't feel like it added anything to the story having it told that way. If anything, it kind of hinders what we're watching, as we aren't able to dig too deep into Elvis as a person because it is so surface layer. Sure, it is still enjoyable seeing all these big recreations of these well-known moments in Elvis's life, but we never spend a lot of time delving into a lot of them. We don't really sit with anything for all that long, which is kind of crazy to think about because the runtime of this film is quite long. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes, and the film covers a lot of different topics in Elvis's life, but it's so fast-paced that I kind of wanted the film to just slow down a lot of the time. Since this is supposed to be a biopic, I wanted to know a little bit more about Elvis the person, not as much the Elvis rock star portrayal that we all know and love. Because many people know there are some very sad things in the backstory of Elvis, and they are like slightly addressed, but not addressed all that much. I do think it is great that we do address in this the approach here when it comes to Elvis and the fact that he was influenced by a lot of black musicians. We finally do address that here in this biopic, which is nice to see, but I wanted us to uncover or at least talk about some of the other stuff that kind of was swept under the rug here in this film. While Elvis is not the best of these more recent musical biopics, I do think it does a decent job here showcasing Elvis as the king of rock and roll thanks to Baz Luhrmann's style and flair. It is bolstered a lot by a great performance here from Austin Butler that I think is worthy of all the praise that the film has been getting so far. If you're not a big fan of Elvis, I don't know if this will really like gravitate towards you all that much. I think this is very much for the Elvis audience and the Academy because this is very much trying to push for the Oscar consideration here. This is coming from someone who's not like a massive Elvis Presley fan. I like Elvis Presley, but I'm not like a massive super mega fan fan like a lot of people are. So just take what my opinion is with a grain of salt here because of that fact. Maybe some big Elvis fans might like this a lot more. I will be intrigued to hear what everyone thinks about the film when it does debut very soon. I'm really curious to hear what the Elvis fans especially have to say about it. But make sure you share your thoughts down below. What do you think of Elvis when you get a chance to check out the film? Do you like the film, not like the film? If you're a massive fan of Elvis Presley, I'd love to know your thoughts down below, especially how did you feel about the portrayal of Elvis in this biopic, and how did you feel about Austin Butler's performance, because I think that's going to be the big thing that we're going to be talking about for a long time with this film. I know there's been a lot of memes, like I've seen a lot of jokes online about Austin Butler's voice, which I do think it is interesting that he is still doing the Elvis voice on a lot of the press tour. But anyways, thank you guys so much. Check out the review. I really appreciate that. Make sure to like on the video. Also subscribe to the channel so you're always updated with my reviews, distractions, unboxings, and more. For next time, I'll see you guys later.